I'm always scared. Always scared. When it's raining, it's difficult because you don't have a place to sleep. You don't have a place to run away during the day.
The pandemic of homelessness has been with us long before COVID-19 hit. Shelters across the country who have been overwhelmed by numbers experienced a shortage of funds, and some even had to close down completely.
The number of shelters for women in Tshwane, for example, were always kind of adequate in terms of bed spaces for the number of homeless women on the streets. And for the first time in the last 12 months, we are actually finding that that becomes a crisis. We need at least 100 or 200 new bed spaces. So that we know why that is suddenly the case, we are not exactly sure. Whether and how far that's, for example, linked to a rising number of cases of gender-based violence, also during lockdown.
In Tshwane, 14 out of the 27 temporary shelters erected for the pandemic have been closed, creating even more pressure for existing permanent shelters.
It has really gotten worse. Before the pandemic, we were always full to capacity, and we still had a lot of requests for people needing space to stay. Like I said, a lot of organizations are shutting down due to lack of funding, so that obviously increases our number.
For shelters like Frida Hartley in Johannesburg, who have barely managed to survive, private donors are what's keeping them going.
We get a lot of our donors from individuals and private organizations. We have just recently received, subsidy from the Solidarity Fund, which is quite great.
Mpho left home in the northwest because he was struggling to find a job. He started taking drugs, which affected his relationship with his family. He then decided to pack his bags to go hustle in the city of gold. Mpho washes car windows for a living, but when there were no cars on the road during lockdown, he said he was relying on people who saw him to donate clothes and food.
They give me what they give. Any small I accept, any big I accept. Even clothes they give me. It's how I survive here.
Labane says though the Department of Social Development has resources such as the Victim Support Bill, the implementation does not match. She also believes the department's restrictions, such as not being able to administer medication for people in the shelter, is not helpful.
I feel they have good policies, however, the implementation of those policies suck. Everything on paper looks great, but in terms of really projecting that and making sure that organizations like ours are well taken care of and we don't have restrictions from them, because a lot of restrictions come from them. So it's even hard for us to accept the little money that they give us.
When President Ramaphosa says there should be temporary shelters for every homeless person, I'm not sure he knew that there was no national policy.
During the COVID started until now, I think the life is still the same for me. They didn't change.
So what needs to change?
So there is really a challenge to create a new kind of collaborative between the city, the NGO sector, the research community, even private sector, because we think we can end homelessness for certain populations, especially chronic homeless people, older people, people with severe mental illness and so forth. We need as diverse as possible housing options. Social housing, affordable rental units, special needs housing for people with chronic mental illness that need long-term care.
We wanted to start on an expansion program so that we can be able to house 100 women when we turn 100. So 50% of that would be women who we are currently servicing, who are currently helping, and therefore when they transition out of the shelter, they would then move into the other 50% of the affordable housing project.
If I get help, I am gonna go back home and stay at home looking for a job, doing my hand job the way I know myself.